Every year, humanity spends trillions of dollars on diagnosis, treatment, and patient counseling. But imagine a country where every patient has free access to the best clinical and surgical treatment, provided by the best physicians and surgeons. And they have sufficient time for consultation, health education, and guidance. What kind of effect might this have on individual and public health? It is intuitive to assume that overall wellness would significantly improve. However, the shocking truth is that even under these nearly impossible conditions, the benefit to public health would not exceed a 15% improvement. How? How can that be? This low impact to public health was addressed by one of the most credible scientific authorities, Thomas Frieden, director of the CDC, who published an article in the American Journal of Public Health in 2010 titled A Framework of Public Health Action, the Health Impact Pyramid. The top tier in this pyramid, which we call the fifth level, is the level of counseling and education, whether through doctor visits or any other type of medical counseling. The next tier is the fourth level, which is the level of clinical interventions. These represent all types of diagnostic and therapeutic interventions, including medication and surgery. As for the third level, which is the level of long-lasting protective interventions, it represents a one-time intervention that does not require clinical follow-up, such as vaccination. The second level is defined by health laws and policies. And finally, the first tier, which represents the base of the pyramid, is the level of socioeconomic factors. Many believe that the upper two tiers in the pyramid, counseling and education and clinical interventions, represent the core of public health. However, in reality, they are among the least effective interventions in terms of efficacy and impact. Despite the importance of counseling and education on changing social health patterns, their impact remains limited. For instance, efforts warning against overeating and promoting physical activity have widely failed. Yes, failed in curbing the rise of obesity. The percentage of people with obesity in America has doubled from 15% in 1980 to 33% in 2006, which represents 72 million individuals, the majority of whom have been offered counseling by specialists on weight loss. As for the level of clinical interventions, including medication and surgery, despite their undeniable role in the short term, their long-term effect remains limited for three reasons. First, the nature of diseases. Many diseases, especially chronic ones, work silently for years before their true destructive phase becomes apparent when the body has already lost much of its health. Second, the nature of medication or surgery, which often targets the symptoms of an illness, not its causes, and has its own side effects and complications. Third, non-compliance with treatment and counseling, especially in chronic diseases that require a lifelong commitment. Let us examine the third level, which is the level of long-lasting protective interventions, like vaccination. In the early 1950s, the incidence of polio had reached 60,000 new cases per year. However, after the adoption of immunization in the mid-50s, the incidence rate dropped until the disease was annihilated by the early 1960s. The next tier, which is one of the most important and effective levels, is establishing policies and laws that make the healthiest choice the easiest and most accessible. This level has a wider public impact than the previous interventions, which only target the individual. Such policies include raising taxes on tobacco, prohibiting smoking, limiting its advertisement, and restricting its sale in public spaces. It also includes changing the social perspective on smoking. These interventions have achieved an overwhelming success in countries like Australia, where after these laws were passed, the percentage of smokers dropped from 30% to less than 9% of the population. As for the base of the pyramid, or the first tier, it is the level of socioeconomic factors, such as reducing poverty rates and improving formal education, which are the strongest determinants of public health worldwide, as stated in a 2008 article published by the New England Journal of Medicine titled Socioeconomic Inequalities in Health in 22 European Countries. 900 million people around the world do not have access to clean water, while 2.5 billion people have no proper sanitation. Indeed, it is as described by the World Health Organization. Inequalities are killing people on a grand scale. The health impact pyramid illustrates that counseling and education and clinical interventions, which we thought to be the core of public health, are in fact the least effective compared with the other levels. The interventions with the most impact include adopting policies that make the healthiest choice the easiest and most accessible, and improve socioeconomic factors. All public health problems and challenges require tailored interventions that vary across different cultures. For example, to tackle obesity, it is not enough to promote exercise, physical activity, and calorie reduction. These must also be accompanied by taxation of soda drinks and artificially sweetened beverages, as well as other unhealthy foods. Those tax revenues should be redirected towards subsidizing healthy foods, making them cheaper than unhealthy ones. If we go into a grocery store with a certain amount of money and have two options, either to buy a large amount of healthy food or a small amount of unhealthy food, I presume the choice would be simple. If communities were redesigned to promote walking, mobility, and cycling, and to provide public spaces for exercise, wouldn't this encourage us to be more active? The greatest obstacle to achieving societal change is not limited budgets. The health sector is capable of building alliances to achieve this change, once the political will and support of the state is guaranteed. Some countries have begun to implement the concept of health in all policies, called for by the World Health Organization, meaning that no state law or policy can be enacted without its approval by the health authorities after studying potential impacts on the physical, psychological, and social well-being of the people. In a story, Irving Zola presented a parable for our disease-based health systems. He says, "Sometimes I feel as if I am standing by the shore of a swift river and hear the cry of a drowning man. I jump into the cold waters, reach him, and pull him to shore. I revive him with artificial respiration. Just when he begins to breathe, I hear another cry for help. I jump into the cold waters and swim forcefully to a struggling woman, and I pull her to shore. I revive her with artificial respiration. Just when she begins to breathe, I hear another cry for help. I jump into the cold waters for a third time. I pull the man to shore and revive him with artificial respiration. As he begins to breathe, I hear another cry, and another cry, and another. I am so occupied with jumping into the river, pulling people to shore, and reviving them that I have no time to see who is upstream pushing them into the river." The greatest investment that any society can make is an investment in its people. Human beings are the true engine of progress and the foundation of civilization. Even the wealthiest of societies, regardless of their abundant natural resources or their industrial and technological advancements, if they fail to invest in the health of their people and fail to lead them to the highest levels of wellness, then every success or accomplishment they have made will be compromised. The resources will be drained and depleted in treating the sick, simply because they did not realize early on the vital importance of prevention and health promotion.